Africa, per prima cosa li lavano scrupolosamente con l'orina dei loro bovini. I più grandicelli, seguendo l'esempio degli adulti.
This story is so filled with irony that it's almost unbelievable. There was a white couple of farmers who lived in Zimbabwe, and they were kicked off their property. The story made international news earlier this year. Not much news because they don't talk about it, but nonetheless, it was in the international press. Now, having said that, you probably already know the essence of the story. White farmers in Zimbabwe, what happens? They get kicked off their land. Their property was literally stolen from them by Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, who is the head of state in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Who?
A few questions here. These white farmers, how did they come to arrive in Zimbabwe? How did it come to become their property? Just a few questions there.
Well, assigned 20 armed guards, military men, with AK-47s to force this aging white couple off their farm, which was valued at £1 million. Just took the land away from them. Moved in about 24 families, black family settlers, and harassed them until they finally had to give up and just leave. What do? What did Mugabe do to that million-pound property farm after they were kicked out? The answer is they gave it to someone else. Who did they give it to? Dr. Sylvester Nyatsuro, who is a physician living over 7,000 miles away in England. So this guy has a practice in England, a practice in, I think it was Nottingham, England, lives nowhere near, literally thousands of miles away from Zimbabwe. And you can see the ironies, you can see the twists and turns without me even going into it. So, if Zimbabwe is so desperate for help, why doesn't this physician move to Zimbabwe and help his own people? The answer is because I guess he's greedy. So the white family's kicked off their farm, and now this general practitioner, this physician in Britain, is effectively kicked out of his practice.
Right.
Now the farmer.
You see, when you do things like this, it's very, very important. This is very, very important that you do things like this. To take the individual, point him out for his faults, for the world to see. Now, what we end up getting disgusted by, when you finish pointing out his flaws, you then tarnish the rest of us Africans, as if we allow these things to happen. Okay, I'm glad you talk about the little bit of primitivity that we had in Africa, you know, as to say we didn't have modern weapons. Now, when you guys left power, you know, or when the transitions were made in Africa, you left the people without arms. You know, so we cannot fight these people like Mugabe with arms. Okay, so here we've got a situation of individuals who mess it up for the rest of us. Because the rest of us are progressive, but we do not have a voice because of people like Mugabe. Mugabe was trained at the Jesuit school. There's no escaping that. Okay, so he is a product of the West. You see, he is a product of the West. He does not behave like an African. Had he behaved like an African with African values and African principles, we would be in a different state. But that's the thing, you have picked, you know, these people on purpose because they furthered the agenda, the westernization agenda. You know, there is no reason why you could not influence Africa culturally without using violence. When something is good, something is good. That's why we were trading. You see what I'm saying? There is no escaping the fact that Africans were on their land. Okay, fine, as you would like to put it, that we were in abject poverty. You know, and yet we've got just about the last remaining wildlife on the planet. You know, we still had animals to hunt, and we farmed to the point where now more animals have died through encounter of non-Africans. You know, our sufferation as Africans always has been through our encounter with non-Africans. We've never had the same values or respect for life as we do, just for life, not for material things, not for technology. These things you think that are so wonderful. These things are only wonderful if they are benefiting everybody, not when you use these things to have an upper hand over your others. You see, we are not all talented the same. So we should share these talents amongst ourselves. Now, when you hold on to certain talents and you say these talents and we have a patent on these talents and the rest of the world shall not have patents on these talents, well, nature will find a way to redistribute those talents, whether you like it or not. Nature comes into balance here. It always does. And we rely on nature. We've always relied on nature. So yes, for 50,000 years, 100,000 years, it's a fight you will never win. Because these are laws that are natural laws. And no matter how much you want to fight or restructure or reshape these laws and put your own laws on top of them, they will always fade away and will always come back to what is natural about us. It's unfortunate. You'll have to learn the hard way. Yours is a very young civilization.
Didn't do anything wrong. They actually blessed the people of Zimbabwe, formerly Rhodesia, enhanced their lives. Well, why was Nayat Suro?
Did they not enhance their own lives within the process? You see, this is what brought about the revolution in the first place, the Chimurengas in the first place. Because the system was unjust towards majority. So whenever minority oppress the majority, you're always going to have a problem. So we have a problem in Zimbabwe because Mugabe never dismantled the system that was there. He just simply took over the Smith regime and perfected it to now what we have in Zimbabwe. You see, that's the status quo. Do you think we like suffering? Do you actually think we like suffering? There are certain individuals. And that's why they are targeted sanctions. We want him out, but we do not want to shed blood to get him out. Okay? What we want right now is reform, electoral reform. We want the international community to give Zimbabwe one thing: free and fair elections. Electoral reform, free and fair elections. Okay? We need an interim government to run things. We need an alignment of the constitution. You know, we don't need aid. Okay, Zimbabwe is in trouble right now, of course, but aid doesn't do anything to it. Zimbabwe needs reform. Zimbabwe needs to be brought back into society. Zimbabwe needs to have the law functioning again. Zimbabwe needs not to have human rights abuses. Human rights for all. So when you start to now break us apart and put us into black and white, you're making us weaker. We had gotten to a point where right now, where it's not black or white, it's Zimbabweans. And any injustice to any Zimbabwean is injustice that has to be rectified and be corrected as Zimbabwean. So when you want to black and white us, that's the problem with you Americans. You operate everything by race. We are trying to build a new nation where we do not see that, where we only deal with issues. Now that man right there, that doctor, whatever, he done something wrong. And putting him next to Mugabe is very correct because these are criminals and they belong in the same category. But then when you tarnish the rest of us Africans like we have benefited from these two peoples, no, we have not. Okay, we have not benefited anything. For the last 36 years in Zimbabwe, things have been deteriorating. Okay? Deteriorating. My parents paid for my education, so the government paid for nothing. There is no infrastructure. There are no institutions that the government has built since them getting into power. So we need a regime change. These people are hardworking people, the normal people of Zimbabwe. We are normal people, hardworking people. But we've been under the thumb of a dictator for 36 years, where we're not allowed to even speak out. I've been labeled a cyber terrorist for just speaking out like you're speaking out right now. You see, I've been labeled a cyber terrorist. All of a sudden, I'm being funded by the West. And you encourage this because when you say we are idiots, that means we are actually, we can't think, we can't see. As if to say we cannot identify that the problem here is a problem of governance. That we have a regime here, a dictatorship here in power, that's destroying what was jewel of Africa. You see. So this here, you cannot scheme on it. You cannot scheme on it. Okay, and drop the race card. Let's deal on the issues in Zimbabwe right now. Black and white in Zimbabwe right now, we're trying to come together as one because we are all suffering injustices. Black and white. We want the Zimbabwe we were proud of. Of course we do.
Effectively kicked out of his practice. Well, here's what the story says. This is Daily Mail. A GP, general practitioner, who forced a white family off their farm in Zimbabwe, formerly Rhodesia, through links with the Mugabe, formerly Rhodesia, I'm saying that, not the report. Through links with the Mugabe regime, has resigned after his practice was put into special measures. Keep in mind, this is a British newspaper. They say things a little bit different than we do in the United States. Dr. Sylvester Nyatsuro resigned on Wednesday, the day before a damning inspection report on his Nottingham surgery practice in the Willows Medical Center is published. The critic report by the Care Quality Commission, CQC, under the catalog of failures at the chaotic surgery where a healthcare assistant posed as a doctor. So this guy was basically running a sham practice, medical practice in Nottingham, England. Had good reason to be kicked out of his practice. But the farmers who were living in Zimbabwe weren't running a sham.
Yes.
Rather, they were.
You see, now that's nice when you say things like that. The farmers who are living in Zimbabwe. You see what I'm saying? Because when you start saying things like the white farmers living in Zimbabwe, what is it do you want us to notice? Do you see what I'm saying? There are certain things you cannot avoid in life, okay? Because you can see with yourself, okay? And it goes without saying. It goes without saying. What is there should be that cultural exchange, that ongoing cultural exchange of sharing of ideas, not through violent means, but through sharing of ideas. They must have room to practice what they need to practice. They must have room in Zimbabwe to grow is how much they want to grow. And other Zimbabweans can learn from that as well. You see, you cannot stop that. That's the progress we want. Not where you enforce things. That's the kind of regime we're trying to get away from.
Enhancing the lives of Zimbabweans. The story says that Dr. Nyatsuro hit the headlines in February after the Rankin family was forced off their £1 million farm in September by 20 henchmen armed with AK-47s. They arrived with a government document saying that Dr. Nyatsuro, who has close political connections with Mugabe, was now the rightful owner of the plantation. Here's a twist. You know, the globalists tell us that white people moved to Africa as colonists, as imperialists, and stole their land and stole all their stuff. All right, liberals, left-wing lunatics. I gotta warn you, this is the point where you need to plug your ears, because what I'm going to say is going to be extremely painful. Anytime you speak the truth to a globalist or left-wing loony, it causes pain. So if you ever want to cause pain to one of these people, just start telling the truth. It drives them crazy. It's kind of like showing a cross to a vampire. So here's the truth. Until the mid-18th century, virtually all of Africa, with a few exceptions, and those exceptions were where white colonies existed, virtually all of sub-Saharan Africa lived in abject poverty that was so dire and desperate, it is unbelievable. We cannot even imagine. Though keep in mind that that standard of living, or lack of standard of living, persisted generation after generation going back thousands of years. Some people say 50,000 years. White people moved in and rescued them.
Right. Rescued us. You finally conquered us. Do you see here? To you, you say you finally rescued us. How else can you say it? That's the way you view it. You see? And I'm always going to see it from my point of view. That's when you conquered us. So yes, my people are conquered by you. It's plain to see. My people are conquered by you. That's plain to see. So you can say whatever you want to say about us, whether it's true or false, because we have been conquered by you. You see. You do what you do.
Enhance their lives with modern technology. I can't even begin to describe the amazing transformation that took place in sub-Saharan Africa. Told you it was painful. Why do liberals say? They say, well, you're a racist, because they can't argue with you, so they have to call you names. Kind of like third grade girls, calling each other funny names. That's about the mindset of a typical globalist. So what we find happening is this myth of white imperialism, white colonialism hurting black people is being used as an excuse to hurt sub-Saharan Africans. We see corruption in the Zimbabwe government.
Yes.
And his relationship with Dr. Zayed Suru. Probably want to put that doctor in quotes. I'm sure he has a degree, but still. Why does a physician, not just somebody with a degree, but somebody who actually heals people? The next thing we notice about this is the fact that the farmers were kicked off their property for no good reason. They actually enhanced the lives of people who lived in Zimbabwe.
No, I'll give you a very good reason why they were kicked off. Okay, it's not for no good reason. Okay, you have a monster called ZANU-PF, led by a dictator called Robert Mugabe. Okay, now these people do not respect the rule of law. They have stolen the elections. They are not a democratically elected government. They do not represent the will of the people of Zimbabwe. Okay. Now to hold on to this facade, and this is what dictators do. They grab, and they give to their cronies. Zimbabwe has not benefited from this. You're only talking less than 1% who have enjoyed the wealth of Zimbabwe. It's just Mugabe and his boys. Okay, it's just Mugabe and his boys. The rest of us have been living in poverty. Okay, you see, the white farmers were feeding us. You see, they were feeding us. Right. And then Mugabe wanted to maintain power. So he said, hey, take the farms. Mind you, it's not the people who took the farms. It's Mugabe's militia. Okay, Mugabe's militia. Okay, the things that were going on in Zimbabwe, I didn't even know. People were being trained, but right now they're coming out and beating up people ruthlessly. People are trying to protest peacefully. These guys are ruthless, lawless. You see. So this is what we're dealing with in Zimbabwe. We had a good education growing up, an English education growing up. Your average Zimbabwean is not perhaps your average African. Perhaps we hold on to certain things like Christian values. Call us backward for that too. that we hold on to Christian values. That's backward thinking. So whatever it is with you Europeans, it's always going to be backward thinking because now you are agnostics, and we should catch up somehow. No, we've got issues. Like this man here, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, right? We need to get rid of him, okay? The people need to be educated, okay? And it's the people in the rural communities, the rural villages, that need to be approached and spoken to without fear. Without fear. Excuse me. So if perhaps we need United Nations soldiers to come in for the next 2 years and maintain peace while people go about campaigning, that would be something that is nice. Okay, that would be a gift to Zimbabwe right now. Before civil war breaks out, and then the whole world thinks that's what Africa is all about. We have a very small voice, and we're trying by all means to reach out to everyone. You see what I'm saying? This is not the time for blame, this is the time for building. So we think right now as Zimbabweans. So addressing these issues is to get rid of these people. And if we have to do it legally, we have to do it peacefully, it's through the ballot box. And you can only do that through voter education. Hey, sweetie, I have to finish this, sorry.
The doctor, Diet Zero, did not enhance the lives of people in Britain, in England.
I'll put it there.
Another twist of the story is, let's frame it in the form of a question. What's this guy doing in England? I thought white British people were racist. Why would somebody flee to a place where they're going to face abject discrimination because of their race, because of their nation of origin? Why did he not stay in Zimbabwe and enhance the lives of the people there? To see the white guy, the white settlers.
No, this is not a black nor white thing, okay? This is not a black or white thing, all right? Now, we are all suffering because of this man here, like I said, all right? So when we stop using the race card for a minute, we can actually start dealing with the real issues, okay? The real issues, and the real issues make it better for everybody. Don't create issues. Don't create issues. Okay, we actually do have genuine issues to deal with. So let's deal with those issues, okay, of injustice. And we start with the injustice. And let's not look at black or white. No, let's look at injustice. Let's look at you for what you are, okay? Let a man be judged by his deeds now.
Move to Zimbabwe and enhance the lives of people. The sub-Saharan Africans move to England and destroy the lives of people. Going to this would be painful.
How to subscribe. Click the subscribe button. Click the gear. Check the box.
Save.
Interesting. You should make some more. But get deeper into the history of Zimbabwe.